doing your own thing is definitely not easy. And we're not just talking about building a business. We're kind of talking about, life, doing your own thing in life. Like for me, I was coloring my hair like almost 10 years now, maybe close to 10 years. And it's only in the past maybe couple of years that I started doing semi-permanent colors. And it's amazing how, some people look at you like you're crazy because, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Well, what I'm doing is being me. I mean, you don't talk about the fact that I wear Star Wars t-shirts or, like casual clothing most of the time. Like nobody wants to talk about that, but you want to talk about the fact that my hair isn't traditional. But let's be honest. For me, for 6 years, I worked an office job. And, you couldn't just do what you wanted to do because it was a professional job. It was in HR, so you're seeing people all the time and you have to wear, proper office attire. Well, proper office attire has never really been me. I've never actually enjoyed working in an office. The thing that I did love doing was working with international visas, but I enjoyed working with international visas because it kind of got me to talk to internationals. And I love traveling, so talking to people from other countries is sort of like the best thing for me. But, I did that. I went through, it took me until after I had graduated with my undergrad to even attempt to color my hair, because for the longest time it was, I wanted to color my hair, but you're kind of told, well, no, you can't because, well, what are you going to do? And then everyone's telling you, oh, no, that wouldn't look good on you. And so it's like only when you become an adult and you kind of get past that point of caring what other people think that you actually sort of take a chance of doing your own thing. And that sort of, it took me a while. I was, 22, maybe? 22, 23? Probably around that, 22, 23, when I first started coloring my hair. And that tells you my age currently, which I don't care, like whatever. I turned 30 when I was in Japan a couple of years ago, and that was probably like the greatest way to turn 30 because it's impossible to be upset about leaving behind your 20s when you're out of the country and you're exploring the world around you. But it isn't just the hair. Like for me, everything I did, like when I was in anthropology, when I was doing theater, when I was doing, even seminary and whatever, it's like wherever it is I go, somehow I never seem to find anyone who loves sports the way that I do. And it's kind of amazing because, you're kind of taught stereotypically that guys love sports. And so I've always gotten along with guys more than I've gotten along with women because things that were considered traditionally female, like shopping and shoes and things like that, I've never really had an interest in. But you put on a sports, program and I'm all there. And it always kind of amazed me because it was like you want to talk about sports, you want to talk about things that interest you, and somehow, either you're looked at like you're crazy or you can't find anyone who actually agrees with that. But I did come to love guns. When I was living in Virginia for a year and a half, it's Virginia, largest naval base. So, and I lived right by the base. So you're surrounded by Navy guys and military guys. And so they taught guns a lot. And so I learned a lot about guns. And then, I came back home to Chicago and, I wanted the experience. I have a friend who loves guns. He collects guns. He was always trying to get me to, go with him to the gun range. I finally got my gun card. I'm trying to save up the money right now to do the conceal and carry. But going to the range, shooting a gun, like, I love that. It's so much fun. And it's kind of crazy because I don't really want to bring social commentary into this, but I'm talking about guns right now, and I want to talk about the ridiculousness of this gun control thing because it's insanity. It is. I live in Chicago, and I know I just said that, but again, everybody knows Chicago. We have some pretty tough gun control laws. We can't even buy a gun in the city of Chicago. I have to go out into the suburbs and to be able to even do that, even though I can take a conceal and carry class in Chicago. But, you hear about shootings every single day. It's wintertime. Negroes should be inside the house, but you still hear about it. And I get tired of the blame being put on legal gun owners because it's not people like me who would own a gun legally, who would submit to a background check, who would do everything possible to get a legal gun and would, again, take the conceal and carry class. So I'm taking the class so that I can learn how to properly handle a gun, how to actually deal with, how, to put them up in the house. You take that kind of time out. You get the materials so that you can do what you're supposed to do. And somehow we think that strict gun control laws or taking away people's guns are going to stop the violence. Well, let's be honest. Criminals are always going to find guns. Think about it. In the 1920s, they had the Prohibition. And all that happened was speakeasies opened. Illegal alcohol was sold. You had the crime. You had the mobs. You had all of that. So where, other than law-abiding citizens being affected, how are you going to stop the criminals? You're not, because they're getting illegal guns. They're not going to the gun shop. They don't care about the gun shop. They don't care about the background checks. They don't care about any of that. They know where to get an illegal gun. And you force people like me who want a gun for protection or as a hobby or something, and you tell me I can't own a gun to protect myself because somehow we want to blame the crazies and the criminals and say, well, we're stopping them, but you're not stopping them from getting guns. Because let's look at this when we talk about that one really sad case where the young man went into the school and into the primary school and shot all those little kids and the teachers. I mean, as sad as that is, let's be honest. He took his mother's guns, which means the guns that he got were obtained illegally because he didn't have permission from his mother. She was a legal gun owner. She had submitted herself to the processes. So the fact that her son illegally gained her guns, we want to say, well, there were legal guns in the home. Well, yeah, but he gained them illegally and did what he did. The Columbine, that happened when I was in high school. And I remember that happened. And, They wanted to check all of us in my high school. And I will be completely honest. I went to a high school that everybody was kind of afraid of because it was a majority black high school. And, you listen to the non-blacks, especially the non-blacks in the areas, and, the things that they used to say, well, don't they run down the hallway shooting at each other? No, because why would we? Those Negroes don't go to school. Will you get fights? Yeah, but you get fights everywhere. But to say that, you know, but to say that legal guns are the problem, because even they would have had guns illegally. The guys who went to Columbine, I guarantee they didn't gain those guns legally. They were too young to. And so we're crucifying people who are doing legal things with their guns. They're going to the ranges. They're using their guns for hunting. And we're telling them, you know what? We don't want you to do that anymore because we want to control what you legal people do, because somehow we think that's going to stop the illegal use of guns. But it's never going to happen. You haven't stopped drugs yet. You haven't stopped illegal guns. You haven't stopped crime. And I'm all off topic because, of course, this was supposed to be about doing your own thing. But, it's important because it's part of doing your own thing, because it's part of this whole movement of people now trying to tell you who and what you are supposed to be. And we can say that that's wrong, but is that not what's happening? When you listen to people like, the feminist Anita Sarkeesian, or you listen to the people who talk about Black Lives Matter, and you look at a lot of these things, a lot of the things that they're saying is this kind of groupthink. And when you go to groupthink, because again, I was in Japan for 3 months doing an internship for my seminary. For 3 months I was there, and in that Far East culture, they abide by groupthink. They're not taught from the time they go to school. They're not taught individuality. They're not taught, the value of free thinking. They're taught to abide by societal standards and to move into groupthink. And so you think of the group before you think of yourself. That's why it's very hard for Japanese Christians, because you end up becoming the nail that's standing up kind of thing. And according to groupthink, you never want to be the nail that's standing up. You always should abide by what the group is doing. And now we want to bring that kind of circular thinking here, because now we want to tell people you can't be who you are as a person, but you can also be unique by being what we want you to be. And it makes no sense, because I can either be myself, which is an individual, or I could do groupthink and not be an individual and do things according to what you say I should be doing. Because let's give an example. For me, I live in Chicago, and for my early years, I grew up in Inglewood. And if you are a Chicagoan, or if you're, a hood Chicagoan, you understand the neighborhood Inglewood. That's not necessarily a safe place to be. And it wasn't a safe place at that time. And that gave me a very different view of violence and crime. And so, I'm not afraid of much. because you can tell the kind of areas that you need to stay away from. You can tell the kind of people you need to stay away from, because I've looked into the eyes of just the vilest, the most violent of criminals. Like, you see men who will kill you and have no problems doing it. And so to think that I'm supposed to walk around as feminists would have you think and be afraid because suddenly every man is a rapist or every man is violent is ridiculous, because why should I be afraid of everybody? But it's working because they spout facts, and you have women now who just don't like men just because they've heard these crazy things. And if you're an individual, if you're a woman who says that you're not afraid, or you're a woman who doesn't believe what they believe, like if you say you're an anti-feminist, oh my God, it's like the world is ending, because how could you not be a feminist? Do you believe in equality? Well, yeah, of course I believe in equality, but you're a feminist. But no, I'm not a feminist, because I shouldn't have to be a feminist. I have individuality. I can do what I want. I can do my own thing. I should be able to do my own thing. But again, doing your own thing is hard. Even in business, when they talk about the wage gap and stuff like that, which again, I worked for 6 years in an office. There really is no such thing as a wage gap, because you have to understand, especially working, when I worked in HR, the thing that you have to understand is we're not just talking about the same exact job. We're talking about variables. We're talking about, your number of years of experience, because I've met people who've had business degrees and stuff like that, and they still were kind of idiots, or they were ill-equipped to do the job. So why should you make the same amount of money as someone who's been in their managerial job for 20 years, have their job down pat, paid their dues and stuff like that, and earned their money? You're not doing the same exact job, because the difference is you may have the same kind of title, but that doesn't mean you're doing the same exact job. If you were doing the same exact job, your money would be comparable. And that's the thing that we don't have. That's the thing that we need to understand. It used to frustrate me when I would see people get out of school and they would demand this high salary, and you're thinking, but you don't even know what you're doing. You've never even worked this kind of job. You just happen to have a degree, which somehow makes you think you know everything. But especially when we're talking about bachelors, you're kind of an idiot when you come out from your bachelor's degree. I don't necessarily like the American system. And I'll tell you why. Because we have the most useless educational system. And we do. And this is someone who, my undergrad degree was in theater. And it was kind of useless, because the thing was this. The American system is based around this idea that you're trying to make a well-rounded adult when they graduate. But the problem becomes, in the well-roundedness, you're not actually specializing in the things that you say that you want to do. When I studied abroad in London, it was only a 3-year program, and every class they took was related to theater. Why? Because the assumption is you're taking theater because you're getting ready to go out into the world of theater, and you're getting ready to make that your career. And should that not be what you do? If I say I want to be an engineer, well, what do I need to care about history? Because how does that relate to my career choice of engineering? But in the US, we don't care about that, because it's like, well, but you might get a job doing something else. But why should we have a system that caters to that? Should we not have a system that caters to the idea of allowing people to go into the field that they say they want to go into? Why can't we do, job programs where you get a chance to work in your particular field and get college credit for that and take classes solely based around what it is that you want to do in life? Would that not be more effective? I say so because, again, I don't care if my doctor took a history class. Yeah, it might have a nice conversation, but if he's interested in a subject, he can do that on his own. If I'm interested in a subject, I can certainly learn it on my own. I don't need to take a whole class based around that. When I did my master's degree, everything was related to the courses. It was related to my master's degree. And that was divinity. So everything related to theology, practical theology classes, ministry classes, exegesis, ancient Greek, ancient Hebrew, all of that. It related to the field that I was called to. And because not everybody wants to spend money doing a master's degree, because certainly, we can say, well, you're mastering the technique or you're mastering the subject. But when you come into your master's degree from your bachelor's, you don't know anything. And it shows, because when I was at my seminary, there was I think it was a Time magazine or something like that. And, they were talking about how businesses are becoming unhappy with the stock that they get from college students. And because these college students actually graduated without knowing anything. Well, I could have told the system that, because you don't know anything coming out with your bachelor's degree. And certainly, I would say it's worse nowadays than it was back then, because you have an overwhelming amount of people who have the most useless degrees ever. And again, this is someone with a degree in theater. Useless degrees. Useless. To have my office job, I just so happened to luck out in the fact that I was working in the office that I was eventually hired full-time in as a student. But if I was trying to do the business thing without a job with just a theater degree, and I didn't have any office experience, well, how could I expect to get a job? You don't know anything. You barely know theater. You barely know acting, because at the end of the day, everything you needed to take didn't even relate to what you wanted to do with your life. And I feel like that's kind of sad, because, college is a time where people should really kind of grow into the people that they are. It's a chance to do that. And we should embrace that as people. That's why, for me, one of the things I always, try to tell my younger cousin, study abroad. Do something different. Do something that makes you different, and understand that doing your own thing is a good thing, because who cares about what other people think? We shouldn't. And yet a lot of people say that they don't care what other people think, but they do, because every day we ignore what we actually desire because we're so focused on doing what other people say that we're supposed to do. Again, I did that for 6 whole years. For 6 years, I worked in a job that just sucked my soul out. I cannot even tell you how much it sucked my soul out, how much I was just ready to die almost, because it was killing me. My job was literally killing me. I couldn't wake up in the mornings. I couldn't even function. Like I couldn't breathe almost. I couldn't even couldn't even imagine what my life could be because I was in this soul-sucking job. And so many of us are in that because I stayed because all you kept being told is, well, it's money. At least you have a job. At least you're making a paycheck. It's the adult thing. Why don't you just buy into it? And it didn't matter that I was deeply unhappy. The people around me knew. It wasn't a secret that I was deeply unhappy. But nobody could understand how. Except maybe a few. Because I remember I went to a writer's workshop, and I remember the guy that I had who was looking over one of the stories I had, or a portion of a novel that I'm still working on over, 10 years later. And I remember the one thing he said to me is, why are you working in HR? Like, why are you doing that? You should be doing this for a living. You should be writing for a living. And a lot of what we talked about, was this idea of doing things for other people because you want to make somebody else happy. And somehow it sucks your soul out, but you're doing it because you want to make the other person happy because we're told. This is something that unfortunately is kind of told to us. It's that American dream kind of thing. Like, you're kind of told this is what you should desire out of life. And so we do the things that we're supposed to desire out of life because to want to do something different makes you weird. And we look at being weird as being a bad thing. We look at television shows and the weird person is always extra weird. Like, just uncomfortably weird. Somebody you never would want to hang out with. Somebody you couldn't even think to have anything to do with. But that's our idea of being weird. I remember I used to talk to my mother all the time about how I didn't want to work the job, how technically for me, I didn't really care if I never worked a full-time job in my life. And her thing was always, well, but what about money? Because you could be homeless. Well, why do we always have to go to that extreme example? Why is it? Same thing, when I used to have conversations with my brother. I don't worry about money. Well, you should, because we need to worry about it. But why do we need to worry about it? I don't understand it. Why do we need to worry about it? Why this insistence on making ourselves miserably unhappy just to do something because other people say that's what we're supposed to aspire to do? Now, I admit, I've kind of, at this point in my life, I've kind of bought into being the person that I am. I have probably thrown out every office item that I've ever owned because I just cannot do it. I can't. I am a t-shirts and jeans person. I am sweatpants. I'm everything casual because I just cannot even think anymore about working in an office in office attire, sitting at a desk. And I tell people all the time, part of why I did the semi-permanent colors in my hair is because it was a declaration, so to speak. As long as my hair was still looking more professional, and yes, of course, as a Black woman wearing blonde hair, some would argue, well, that's not very professional, but I've always kept my hair professional, and I've always been able to find jobs, even keeping my hair color the way that I wanted to keep it. But in this, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm doing what I want to do with my life. And I enjoy it. I I've never been more content in my life than I am right now. Yes, money is a struggle because right now it's kind of like foundational building. And as with anything, you have to put in the hard work. But that's why, entrepreneurs are risk takers, because you're doing things that are a risk. You know it's a risk, but you would rather take the risk than not take it and be miserable. And that, I wish more people would do their own thing. I mean, imagine a world where people could just be themselves, like actually be themselves and not be this pseudo person or, that we are today. It's kind of ridiculous in a way. And I think that we've gotten even more ridiculous nowadays because everything is about this. Everything is about this. Everything is about this crazy, groupthink thing. Let's all do what we're told to do. Nobody should have an opinion. Nobody should have a thought. Nobody should think of, doing things that pleases themselves. And I know it seems counterintuitive when, I say that being Christians is other-centric, but technically it isn't, because when I'm doing my own thing and I'm allowed to do as I desire, work the kind of career that I want to, build the kind of business that I want to, it makes it a lot easier for me to think of others. Because I'm content, I want others to be content. I'm free to see the needs of others. And I can't but help think that that is a good thing. Because I'm doing, because again, I'm doing me. And it's only when we're doing ourselves and we're not, bogged down by the opinions of others that we actually have, freedom, so to speak. And, I don't want to put this back to Christianity, but I'm a Christian, so I'm going to do it anyway. But it's sort of like, people look at God and they think of being Christian as being this confining thing. But it really isn't, because God gives you the freedom to be yourself because you're being who He created you to be. And there's freedom in that. He created me to be creative. He created me to be imaginative. He created me to be someone with an opinion, someone who is intelligent, someone who, loves doing research and all of that. Like, I always say, I'm creative, but I'm like a left-brained creative person. So everything for me is still, creative in a left-brained way kind of thing. And that's who I am. And, that makes me feel relieved because I can be that kind of person. And it doesn't matter where I am. I get to be me because I'm free. God gives me the freedom to do that. I don't have to work a job in an office anymore if I don't feel like it, because God has made me who I am and He's given me the right to do what I want to do. And as long as I know that I'm pleasing Him, I don't necessarily care if there are others who don't like what I'm doing and don't like what I say. That's okay, because I'm pleasing the man who, or I guess the being, I'm pleasing God who created me to be who I am. And that's really all I want to say about, being your own person and doing things your own way. I think it's fantastic doing things your own way. Again, I wish other people would do things their own way. And this is kind of a podcast for doing things your own way, because I love people who do their own thing. I think it's great. You're the kind of people that I love talking to. And so you know, stick around. Let's learn to do our own thing together. Let's explore this world for everything that it is and understand that life is good either way.